When we got human crew members, we were all made aware of the changes that would happen. New foods would be added to the roster, some of which we couldn't eat due to the spices used, and that there were certain foods we had that we could not give the humans for the same reason. However, the strangest changes were those that were done to the recreation room. There were several new things added. A large set of shapeless sacks that seemed to conform to those who sat on them. A large table covered in a cloth. The edges were raised as if to prevent things falling off, but had regular gaps along its edge. The strangest, however, were added at the advisory of the Human Interaction Council on Earth. A large open space with a raised platform around it, and several dozen large crates were placed within the space. Each crate had labels. Some seemed to simply be measurements. However, there were no units given, such as 2x3 plate, while some had long and complex names such as axle pin with friction ridges lengthwise. No one was really sure what on earth these were. When the humans were introduced to the crew, they seemed rather normal, at least for such a strange species. They did their jobs well and kept to themselves mostly. It took them a few days to discover the space set aside for the crates. One of the humans let out a yell of glee and held up something from one of the boxes. It looked like a small plastic cube. The response from the other two humans was to rush over and started opening the crates and shouting at each other and holding up handfuls of brightly coloured plastic shapes. The other crew members looked on in utter confusion. The shapes looked like the sort of toys we'd use to teach children the basic shapes and fundamentals of geometry. The humans, however, seemed utterly gleeful about them and started pressing the shapes together. Most of the crew dismissed this as humans being humans, a primitive race that found joy in basic things. A few, however, watched as the humans dragged over the shapeless sack chairs and set about pushing the shapes together in ever more complex manners. The shapes appeared to stick together, and the humans clearly were up to something with them. Days passed, and the humans kept going back to the plastic shapes. They'd often stop and do other things, but they'd always go back and resume whatever they were working on. They'd found other crates full of stranger shapes than the plastic bricks, sloped bits or cross-shaped thong-thing ones, even gears and other basic mechanical devices. Myself and one of the other crew members had found that watching the humans work on these plastic shapes was quite entertaining, as they'd often lose or forget a bit and spend a while looking for it. We also learned a large plethora of human swear words when one of the humans stepped on a brick without shoes on. One day we walked into the recreation area and saw up on the raised wall a structure. It was a copy of the ship, made out of the tiny plastic shapes. Myself and the other crew member who watched the humans rushed over and started to examine this tiny copy of the ship. It was amazing. The detail was so intricate and accurate. There was even a main command deck visible through the clear plastic of the command deck's window. We spent quite a while marvelling at the tiny copy before one of the humans looked up from what they were doing and spotted us. The humans took the time to show us all the extra details of the model, including the functioning cargo bay doors. We were so confused. How could such a simple thing as a plastic shape do all this? The human offered to show us what they were doing and teach us. My companion agreed and was invited to join the humans inside the raised wall to get their first lesson. I simply sat down and started to watch. It didn't take long for my crewmate to be entranced by whatever these cubes were. It was a little longer before they came over to me, carrying a crew structure. It was identifiable as a copy of the houses on our homeworld, but it was made of dozens of different colours and had no windows or doors. It was the most basic representation, but my crewmate seemed very pleased with himself. I didn't realise it at the time, but after a few days I noticed that my crewmate had become like the humans, constantly investing time into these strange plastic shapes. He couldn't convey why it was so engrossing, but he insisted it was worth his time. As the days passed, his contracts became more and more recognisable and advanced, matching colours and shapes. Slowly the humans and my crew member filled up the raised area with small copies and other things. Animals, buildings, vehicles. There was even a copy of a datapad that caused confusion for at least 2 crew members when they attempted to use it. The real shock, however, came when I came to the recreation area only to hear a racket of clacking, clicking, and the sounds of small motors whirring. It didn't take long to locate the source. Set about the human's little area of plastic shapes was well over 40 small mechanical devices that were moving little plastic balls from one to another, each using a different method. Some were throwing the balls, others were picking them up and carrying them. Some had rotating lifting devices, others were using mechanical stepping systems. There were more than I could track, and once I started looking, it was very hard to stop following the balls along their endless journey around the chain of machines. It took a long time to realise I had looped the entire structure at least twice. I finally tore myself away to ask the humans about what was going on, and they explained to me that they'd decided to make what they called a ball contraption, and it had gotten out of hand. I noticed my crewmate busy fiddling with another one of his constructions. While it looked crude next to the humans, it was undeniable that it was far superior to the ones he started out with. It was only when the humans offered to teach anyone who wanted what they were doing, and how to do it, that we discovered just how much fun these little plastic shapes could be, and why the humans loved them so much. Supposedly they were a children's toy, but with the limitations and complexity being only limited by how ingenious you could be with the little blocks, there was no reason not to build grand constructs or tiny intricate machines. It didn't help it was far more difficult than it looked to get it all working. Eventually, the entire crew petitioned the captain for even more of these Legos to be provided to the ship. We're planning on going to the next Lego convention, as the humans call it, as the first interspecies ball contraption.